The essence of care and practice has been a really fundamental partnering parallel inside of the show. It's not something that I see huge amounts of. So the way that we're building it in it feels unique to us because we're just figuring out how it works.
So care and practice is really important to us at Downtown. Andrea is one of our community board members and is a designated officer for therapeutic access. It's something that we carry through everything we do, be that storytelling or professional work. We want people to feel that they have someone they can talk to in the space about whatever they're going through. If they have questions or concerns, they have a place that they can unload and they don't have to carry that into performance or feel that it would impact them in any way. It's not standard practice to have a practitioner on staff or involved, particularly with paid productions, but we feel the cabaret artists and movement artists can be just as vulnerable as anyone else and they deserve to have someone that they can have those conversations with. It also makes us as a team stronger because not only do we have someone we can bounce our ideas off if we're concerned, if we're worried or stressed, we have someone who's there to say these things are appropriate and these things aren't, and make sure that no one oversteps any boundaries. Particularly as well for people who are people of colour and queer who are playing those stories that have quite triggering themes in them. We want them to have someone that they can bounce those things off and not have to take them home with them at the end of a rehearsal.
When we talk about queer work, there seems to always be within queer culture a sense of communal care, or that's what a lot of it feels like at certain spaces. So we take the idea of how people are feeling really seriously and understand that people are feeling stuff as in the process of doing stuff, right? There's also that idea of grounding everything a little bit as well. So for me, as being on stage and doing loads of stuff in London, you are anxious, not just about the show, but you realise there's life going on. You realise that a lot of people get that imposter syndrome still. We have to contend with the world's struggles. And a lot of that comes down to the fact that people still don't feel that art is valid as a career or that they're able to get into it as a career. So this idea of imposter is also really present. So having care and practice is a way of breaking through all of that and saying, let's just call it as it is. Yes, we're in a professional environment, but professional doesn't mean that we have to kind of, that old school thing of slapping on the makeup, get the butt slapped and go, get on that stage. There's a lot more to it now. So for me, working with Andrea has been really beautiful because there is that part of it, but actually Andrea is also there to be able to sort of care in the way that we develop the work. So it's about infusing it within the creative to ensure that that collaboration feels nurtured throughout, whether you are the performer, whether you're the crew, whether you're an audience member, that there's a level of care within that. It's about saying, how does that feel? What does that look like for you? Especially when you're tackling some of the topics in the show. What is it like? How does it feel to represent a woman of colour in the 80s? What does that feel like for you? And those are some of the questions that, maybe wouldn't have been asked before. I think sometimes we still have that belief that theatre and art has to be like fame. Fame costs, and this is where you start paying. Like that phrase in the film's like, you will do as you're told. It's going to cost you all this, and you have to bleed on stage. And it's like, we never ask anyone to just get on stage and bleed for the audience, right? We understand that there's a level of protection that everyone, even the audience, need. People think that when you're creating safe spaces, you're creating spaces that are kind of absent of challenge, that you're creating safe spaces where everyone has to be wrapped in bubble wrap. And actually, what you're doing, you're allowing people to achieve a higher level of potential. So it's not about wrapping people up and going, it's about saying, actually, this is enabling you to rocket off to reach a level of actualization. People get misinformed about safety and that essence of access, where it's like, it's a container. No, it's not actually. It's the rocket ship for it.
I've been with the organisation now for around a year. Josh and Downtown Pompey are really clear about being more inclusive, platforming marginalised voices. So people that wouldn't normally be in these spaces or get to work in these spaces. That's something that's really important to us. And challenging resistance to that. So where there's resistance in the city and in the theatre spaces, promoting access and inclusion, that's the kind of conversations that we want to have. So it's about challenging ourselves and it's about challenging other people, offering them something they wouldn't normally see and hoping that people will come in and get involved, which is really important. I'm a queer, trans, non-binary person living in Portsmouth. The city is important to me. I think it's about queer people collaborating. We're a queer theatre space and wanting to collaborate and build relationships with other people and organisations in the city, hopefully towards a kind of common goal. I think it's about making cultural change, really. in the practice. So I think it's not just about giving individual support to be, I mean, it might be. It could be anything from just supporting people to think about what their needs are, like even how often they eat, helping people to understand how to take care of themselves in the spaces, supports people to build relationships with each other. So I think with this particularly, we have people coming in, a number of different companies and performers coming together, and it's supporting people to build the performance relationally. So they learn how to kind of support each other and understand what their needs are. How do we let people know that we need support is another really important kind of thing to think about. And then there's things around consent and trauma-informed practice. And it also takes into account the audience, so the people that are coming to the shows. So obviously we're giving thought to how the themes that we use, how that's portrayed, how that will both engage people and impact people who comes to theatre. I think it makes it more accessible for people. Well, that would be our hope, is that people feel encouraged, A, to take part in the shows, and B, to come and see them. And for me, it's very much working in the here and now, because obviously things happen to people while they're working. Life experiences happen, things change for them. So it's about kind of managing when those things happen and supporting people to think that they have enough systemic support here, that when things change for them, that they will let us know and we will be able to work it out. It's one of the things about Downtown is about what happens to people after they work with us. What's really important to us is that people have a really good experience of being in the space, and that after that they can kind of go away and take something from it.
For me, I'm a big advocate of this work, and this role is integral to any creative process. And I would definitely champion that this needs to be the absolute foundation of any work such as this. And having that element as part of a project where we have someone that we can go to and talk confidentially, raise any concerns, share any triumphs, and have these check-ins and a designated person to hold some of that responsibility is absolutely priceless, basically. Discussions are had about every element of the show, be that the rehearsal day, the structure of the day, when we're going to get food breaks, making sure that the movement team have enough time to digest food, how they're feeling about the responsibility of displaying some of those stories through physical movement. It is really, really wonderful.
I think this care and practice process and team has been so invaluable. I think especially during the process, we had one week in particular where Josh, the fabulous creator behind the show, brought out these mood cards, and he said, "Oh, you're free to be as candid or as personal as you want to be with these cards." I was really prompted to pick up a card that allowed me to emotionally open, because I felt like it was a safe and consensual space to do so, which has been really unique. And I think it is wild to think that this is not commonplace now. Having gone through this process, I think that it just seems bizarre that this isn't the norm. So I think that doing all of this together is just been really wonderful. And I think the team should be very proud of what they're doing for people and the way they're allowing people to open up and be vulnerable in a space.
Maybe a lot of other performers have said this, but imposter syndrome is real. So feeling like I'm not supposed to be here because this is so far from what I normally do, and everyone else seems so good at what they're doing. And also people like Cherry and Taris and LeBlanc, they're all so extraordinarily talented, and you're just like, hello, I am also here and I am very uncomfortable with being here. It was really hard for me to believe that I'm supposed to be in this space and that who I am is enough. At least for me, personally, I was so grateful to have someone who I could talk to about, imposter syndrome or whatever else might come up. Because I remember quite early on, I was feeling really negative about the show, and I wasn't quite sure how I fit in the show, and I was really concerned that I wasn't supposed to be here. But luckily, we have the care and practice team, and they're really active about reaching out to us and speaking to us and making sure that they're checking in. And so it made it really easy for me to be like, oh, obviously I'm gonna talk to them, which meant that I spoke to them, spoke to Josh, everything got worked out within a day, and then continual support afterwards as well. And having Andrea check in and make sure that everything was still good. I don't think I've ever felt more supported and loved in a production. My grandmother passed away on the opening night, but I've never felt any kind of way about it. Cause I have, because I'm surrounded by so much love, and I couldn't think of a better place to have those things happen to me, because every day I get to come here and do something completely amazing and with the best people ever.